Hey guys, and welcome to another tutorial by Tutorial Grid. This one is going to be a real fun one. It's a very detailed galaxy sculpture. It's a very detailed galaxy that we'll be creating. Now, I watched a lot of different tutorials to try to get a good idea on, how to create certain different techniques and things like that. And there's just a lot that goes into this. More than likely, it's going to be a two-parter, just because the amount of detail that has to go into this is pretty crazy. But first, before we get into it, why don't you go ahead and go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/avidproductions479. Go ahead and give us a like, and check out our stuff. Check out some of our work, some of our pictures, stuff like that, just to keep in touch with us and see everything that we're doing. Also, if you can check us out at avidproductions479.com, all our tutorials are found there. At Tutorial Grid, our project downloads, we also have free stock footage. This project download will be right here under project downloads. Yeah, so first of all, let's check out what we're going to be doing. Now, this project was a part of a big galaxy sequence that I'm doing for a client, and I really wanted to show off some of the different techniques that I was using to create this really cool, unique galaxy. But this is kind of what it looks like. It's got a big star cluster, this huge energetic galaxy that has all these little itty bitty tiny details. It just goes through here, and it's really cool. There's lightning, and there's clouds, and there's volumetric light, and there's a big star right in the middle of this. And it's just, if you can see the actual flares reacting to the sun, and then there's stars, and there's clouds, and there's just all sorts of stuff that goes into this. It's a very large composition. If you can notice, we've got a lot of just stars and clusters all throughout our little system here. We've got the energy, we've got these clouds, some volumetric light, we've got some clouds right over here. We even have asteroids. We've got a lot of stuff in the background that really brings in this composition. So it makes it look very large, and yes, there are a lot of particles in here. You can kind of touch that up to your liking. I kind of liked the fact that it had a whole lot of particles, just because it gives it the added depth that this is a massive project. And also, this is fairly close up to the actual thing that we'll be creating. Okay, so let's get started. So what we're going to first do is we're going to go to composition, create a new composition. You can do 1920 by 1080. If you want, you can bring it down to 720, because this is going to be such a large composition. It's going to take a lot of rendering power to kind of get through it. But I'm going to keep mine 1920 by 1080, 23.976 full resolution. And I'm going to bring, like I said, my composition was quite long. Mine was about 2 minutes and 30 seconds because of the actual film that we're doing. And then, so I'll just bring mine down to, let's just say 20 seconds or whatnot. Hit OK. And now we have where this all began. So we're basically going to be working with the Big Bang Theory. We're going to be creating something out of absolutely nothing. We're playing God, okay? Or whatever you want to believe in. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go up to Layer, New, Light. It's going to be a point light, and we'll just name it Emitter. And hit OK. We're going to want to zoom in to where we can center this up correctly. Whoops. So we're just going to center it up, and you'll see why we do it here in just a second. Okay. And we'll just bring it up all the way to the top of our edge finder. Also, you want to have your title action safe on, which if you click this little button right here, you'll just hit title action safe. That'll give us a good proportion for what we're going to be playing with. All right, now the second thing you're going to do is you're going to click on the emitter and click Control D, and that'll duplicate our light source. So now we are going to bring this all the way down, and on our Y, we're just going to line that up with the line on our action safe again. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to hit Control D one more time. And we're going to push that back up into our center that up, and move it to the left. And make sure that's right on our action safe. And go ahead and hit emitter 3 and hit Control D one more time. We'll just do a four emitter galaxy. The one that I used was a 8 emitter galaxy, which there was one here, on all 4 corners. And then we also had 4 right in between those to where it was a circular spiral. So if you want to do that, awesome. If not, you can do it more simple like this with a 4 emitter. There's a few other different ways to do this, but I like the more visual look with more, but we'll just stick for 4. Okay, the next thing you're going to want to do is go up to Layer, New, Null Object. And that's going to put that right in the center. Okay? And the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to select your emitters. So hit one of these emitters and then shift and click on the other emitters, or just select all of them. And you're going to hit the parent button right here, and you're going to drag it onto null 4. So that's every single property of this null is going to work with all of these emitters. Okay? So now if we do something like this, it will rotate all of them in a fashion. So, okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to create a camera. So we'll go to the Layer, New, Camera. We'll just call it Galaxy Cam. Now notice we don't see those. So what we're going to do is we're going to push out. We're going to pull that back as much as we can. Well, maybe not as much. About half the distance. Well, about 75% distance away. So that becomes really small, but we still have the same perspective as what it was. So this is going to create a lot of depth to our composition. So now we're really far away. We're now going to go to Layer, New, Solid, and we'll name this Galaxy Stars. And we're going to make sure that make comp size, so 1920 by 1080, because this is going to be using our 3D camera. And hit OK. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our Galaxy Stars and we'll just bring it all the way down to underneath our emitter. So we'll click our Galaxy Stars layer. We'll go over to our Effects Control, and we're going to type in our Effects and Presets Particular. I'm going to drag that down to our Galaxy Stars. Now, if you notice, you're going to see just a little bit of stars coming out, and that's fine. We might actually pull the camera back just a little bit because it looks a little big to me, but that's okay. So you can pull it to about like 2 seconds just so you can kind of see what's going on, but we're going to be messing with our Galaxy Stars quite a bit. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go up into emitter, and under emitter type, we're going to put lights. So it's going to track our lights. So now our lights are being interacted with. Our lights are now our emitter. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to click an end point. So I usually like to stay at around 6 to 10 seconds to give our emitter enough time to make our galaxy. But I'll just do it at about 6 seconds. What we'll do is we'll go to our null object. Well, let's go ahead and rename this. We'll just do this as Galaxy Control. So now that we have our Galaxy Control, we are going to go to hit S for scale. And we're actually going to scale this down to about 8%. Now we're going to go down to our 0. And we're going to scale it up a massive amount. So we're at 400%, 500%, and let's stick to about 587%. So whenever we play this, you're going to see our emitter go all the way down and it's going to be emitting particles, but we can't see them really that bad because we're zoomed out. But if you zoom in, you'll be able to see our particles going and emitting in that scale fashion. But you see how they're not really doing anything. They're going down, but it's not creating our galaxy because they're just moving and scaling down. That's it. They're not staying put. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to go into our galaxy stars layer, and we're going to go to velocity, click our 100%, and hit 0. We're also going to change our velocity random. We're going to turn that down to also 0. Our velocity distribution, we're also going to hit 0. Now, velocity from motion, this is where we're going to give our galaxy its uniqueness. I'm going to actually keep this at 0.5. So that way, whenever it emits, it's going to stay still. But whenever this moves, it's going to be wanting to pull in. And you'll see exactly what I mean whenever we create our galaxy here. So now that we have our galaxy moving in, let's go ahead and click. Let's go ahead and go to our galaxy control, and we'll hit R for rotation. We will click our stopwatch here. We will go back to our 6 seconds, and we're going to spin it either clockwise or counterclockwise. And we're just going to keep spinning that around until we see exactly what we want. Now notice what it's doing. We're creating this really, really cool looking star pattern. And I don't think that's enough for me. Let's go a little bit more. Yeah, about right there. So I have mine at about 6%, but mine may look a little different than yours in our preview from before. But remember, I'm just using 4 emitters instead of 8. So now that we have this little star pattern, you can kind of see what it's going to happen. So after 6 seconds, you can kind of see our stars moving around in circles, which is awesome. But we have that problem. They disappear after 3 seconds. So what we're going to do is let's go right here, and you can notice them disappear right through here. So we're going to go to our galaxy stars, and we're going to go to particle and life. So our life expectancy for this project is 20 seconds. So we're going to go ahead and move that up to, I'm going to actually just play it safe. I'm going to put 30 seconds. So it goes past our composition, how long they're going to live. But you can stay the same if you want to. You can keep it at 20. So now that we have our stars going, you can kind of see them. They move. They move in that very slow galaxy type of look. Just very, very subtle. And the reason why is because we kept that velocity from motion very, very light. Now you can play with it as much as you want to kind of give more of either a more intense look. So even if we bring this up to 1, you can see that already makes a very big difference. It moves a lot faster. So you can see once we changed it to 1, it made it a lot faster. And I don't technically like that faster look. I like it looking very subtle. So I'm going to put that back down to 0.5. But now you're probably wondering, well, I've got the galaxy, but it doesn't look all that real yet. Okay, so since we put our emitter as lights, we now have our emitter source. So it's only bringing out so many particles. So what I'm going to do to give this a little bit more depth is I'm going to play with my emitter size on our Z level. So our Z level is what's going to give us the most depth to our composition. So the Z source just kind of gives us that randomosity. So some particles are moving a little bit faster. Some particles are still just kind of staying the same. See, some of them are just moving slightly faster. That's because technically they're closer or further away from the camera. And you can play with this however much you want to. You can kind of bring it more more in. But the further you go, the less of that spirally look we're going to have. So I'm going to keep mine at about 500. Well, let's do about maybe 275. All right, that looks pretty good. Now you can also play with the emitter X. And the emitter Y, just to kind of give it a little more of that spacey type of look. So this is very basic galaxy, as you can tell. Another thing that we can do is our particles are, there's not a whole lot of particles. We have 100 technically per second, 100 particles per second. So out of 4 emitters, only 25 particles per emitter are being sprung out. So we're actually going to up this, and we're going to make it much, much more, because we want this to be just a massive, massive freaking galaxy. So now we have, just think of it, 970 times 4. So whatever that is, if you can do it in your head, I'm not going to look at it, but yeah, whatever that is, that's how many particles we're going to have in our composition. And they're all moving in this really cool circle based on where our particle emitters were coming from. So that's awesome. But now we kind of have a problem. So we've got our particles kind of set up the way we want to, but as soon as they stop, they keep going. As you can see by our center, they now have dots right there. And they're going to keep making dots, and they're going to keep making dots and keep making dots, and that's not good. So what we're going to do to combat that is we're going to move right on our 6-second time rotation right here. We're going to we're going to bring down our little drop box here, go to Effects, Particular, Emitter, and right where it says particles per second, we're actually going to hit their stopwatch, zoom in a little bit, move that back 1 frame, and then since our time stopper or our CTI is right there, we'll just go ahead and hit on 970, 0. So as soon as this stops, our particles stop creating. So we have no more particles, which is awesome. So now there are no more particles, but they're all staying there because of our life expectancy we had changed. So now we just have no more particles being created. They're all moving with our motion that we've created. We have this really cool kind of subtle looking galaxy. And if you want, you can kind of see how our galaxy looks, and you can kind of mess around with the camera a little bit and see that we have a very neat looking galaxy. And again, you can kind of play with the Z depth a little bit to get a different look. But I usually don't have my galaxies this thin, but this is just for tutorial purposes, or I don't really have the camera this close to my galaxy. I like people to see that swirl. Okay. So the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to zoom out. We're going to hit our little stopwatch, or not our stopwatch, our little down arrow. We want to go back into our control system. So what we're going to do is now we're going to kind of create our sun. So right at this 6-second stop, I'm going to pull over my mark endpoint. So this is where we're going to stop. Just in case I move out of this thing, I don't want to keep this open just to see that I have a CTI stopper or a keyframe right here, that this is where my project technically begins, because everything from here is just the creation. Or you can move these over. But I like to do it this way just because if I want to change something, it's all here. Now that we have our mark endpoint, we now have 14 seconds of playroom. So we're going to have a nice little 14-second galaxy. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to start bringing over some of our pictures of galaxies. Now, how I found out about how to kind of get the look of the galaxy is you can kind of go in to Google and do a Google search, and you can kind of see what all goes on with some of these galaxies. This is where I got my idea to do my intense galaxies here. Notice there's a lot of stars, there's a lot of colors. There's a lot of swirly, cool things. But one of the cool things that I wanted to bring into my galaxy was this energy. It's like clouds. You've got energy. You've got all sorts of just crazy kind of stuff going on. But it's a still image. But I wanted to bring that to life by bringing in a lot of energy. And we're going to get to that probably in part 2. But just to kind of give you a really basic idea in our part 1 of how to set this up, we'll go into our project layer. Now you can get the project download from our Avid Production 479 website at avidproductions479.com on our project downloads. And you can download all of these pictures, which are all right here. These are not for free. These I found on Google. You can use them if you like, just don't sell them, all that stuff, because I technically don't own them. I just use them for my for tutorials. So yeah, you'll drag all those over. So we've got this really, really massive, I mean, some of these are 4K pictures. Some of them are 8K pictures. I mean, they're just massive. Yeah, I believe this one's 4K. This one is just under high definition. This one is 2.5, almost 3K, the Orion Nebula. We've got another Orion Nebula. And you really kind of want to figure out exactly what colors and tones you kind of want to play with. And you can use the saturation and the hues to kind of bounce different ideas off of. Like we have this really cool Rosetta picture that I used in a composition. But the one that I really enjoy using is actually the Orion Nebula for our effects. So yeah, so we're going to be using a couple of these in conjunction with a few of these other ones. Also, this blue space nebula is really cool. I'm just going to bring this down here. Well, yeah, whatever. Okay, so first off, what we're going to do is we are going to pull this nebula down underneath our galaxy stars, because this is technically going to be in the background. So already we got something that looks, you know, really, really cool. But it's not necessary to collect, because we're going to be using a camera and all that stuff, and it just doesn't technically work. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit our 3D checkbox here. That's going to pull it down, because that's technically where our starting composition was, because we zoomed out our camera. So what we'll do is we're going to push this up and hold shift. We're just going to make that about the size of our composition. Maybe a little bigger. And it might distort just a little bit, but we'll kind of play with our curve layer to make some adjustments. And you can see we're really blown out on we can no longer see our galaxy at all because of our star system. And the reason that is because all of our emitters are lights. So once we hit that 3D checkbox, all our emitters are now emitting light to where this is going to be blown out in the center, and we can't see our galaxy. We can't see the detail that it's making. So to combat that, what we're going to do is we're going to select all of our emitters, and we're going to bring them down and move them after our checkbox. So now we have our galaxy swirls, and they come in right at our stopwatch here. So if we play that back, we no longer have the bad lighting. We have our galaxy in the background, or we have our galaxy up front. We have our kind of cool background. We have all that stuff, and you can see the particles swirling, and it just looks really, really cool. So, but there is a problem. One of the things, again, that I like to do is in the center of almost every galaxy, there is a sun. There is a star. There is something at the center of every galaxy. So we're going to actually have to create another light. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Layer, New, Solid. And we'll call this our sun and hit OK. Now we have blackness because we have no sun. Kind of yeah, there's a joke. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in Optical Flares by Video Copilot. and we will drag this down onto our sun layer. So now that we have this, we've got our sun. So yay, suns are good. But we're going to get rid of this just because I don't like it. So depending on what your color scheme is, you're going to want a very similar sun. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit clear all from our little checkbox up here, or a little button, and hit yes. Go to lens objects. We can do custom, and we've got a lot of stuff to play with. I personally don't like to see a whole lot of stuff in the foreground. I just want a really basic flare. So I'm going to go with soft stripe and some, well, no, I don't want random stripes. Maybe I don't even want soft stripe either. Let's see here. What do we got? I want, there we go, taper streak. It's going to look good. And maybe a little tri-star. And let's go to our tri-star here, and we'll go to our editor. I just want it to be real small. So I'll just take that stripe and just kind of bring it down a little bit, because this is going to be really massive in size once we get to playing with it. And maybe a little bit more detail. Let's see here. And a thin stripe. Well, it didn't do a whole lot, did it? Well, let me bring the scale up on that. Huh, that didn't do anything. Huh, weird. Is there anything else? Yeah, that looks kind of cool, but I want to stretch this. I want to stretch this and bring this. No, I'll stretch it this way, bring it down this way. So we just have these really kind of cool anamorphic looking stripes. So bring that in. Okay, so now I've got this, just this really simple flare, and I'll hit OK. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go where it says source type under 2D. I'm going to hit track lights. So the reason why I did that is because we have not done a light for our sun. So what we're going to do is go to layer, new, light. And we'll call this is our sun, and hit OK. Now we have this light. Let's bring this back down to 100. This to 100. So now we have our sun. It's all being tracked and stuff, and that's good. So, and I want to take my light and actually move it to the middle here, just like we did with those other ones. Right there. All right, so that's the middle of our galaxy. And now we'll go to our sun optical flare layer and go to normal, and we will hit screen. So now, if you can see, you can see a little bit of our background. We've got our sun layer, and you can kind of mess around with this. I like doing the scale more than I like doing the brightness, because that just kind of brings out more of that detail. It really just kind of makes it look really nice. And you can kind of move this, you can play with the brightness. I like not so bright as much as I like seeing more detail, because I just like having that scale, because you see the lines and it looks really cool. You can see that there's something very powerful right in the center here. All right, so I'm liking how this looks, but I don't like the fact that our nebula layer, you can't really see a whole lot of that detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit our little drop down arrow here. I'm going to hit transform, and I'm going to push it back into our Z space. So at our position, see how it says 0? I'm just going to go ahead and push that back in our Z space a little bit. That way, it's just very, very faint in the distance. But you can still see it. Now we're going to also stretch this up. So just kind of scale it up just a little bit and bring that back to size. So this is the furthest that we're going to come out with our galaxy. So another thing that you can do to our nebula, just to kind of give it a little bit more added flair, is to go to Turbulent Displace, and you type Turbulent Displace, and you can drag that down underneath our nebula here, and you can make it evolve. So let's zoom out, and we'll go to our first keyframe here and hit our stopwatch on our evolution. We'll just kind of push it over to our very end. Let's make it evolve, let's say 4 times. We'll see how that looks here. Now, if it looks too liquidy, you're going to want to, of course, change that, which, yeah, it looks way too liquidy. I can see it change way too much. And, yeah, that, no. Let's go again. Let's just make it 1. Let's see what it looks like with 1. Now, it doesn't look bad. Doesn't look bad. It looks a little liquidy around here, around the edges, but we're going to combat that with a couple more things we're going to do to our layer. So we'll just keep that at 1, but that looks really nice. But if you noticed what I just did there, I put the CTI back, and since all of our emitter layers, you see what it does here. It just makes it look, there's so much weird, crazy stuff going on. That's why we keep our mark out. That way, whenever we render this, it's not going to look crazy. Now, if you notice in our first project, we had a whole lot of volumetric light. There was more of like a cloudy look to our solar system. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and turn off our sun. Yes, we're going to turn the sun off. We're going to go back, and we're actually going to turn off our nebula. Now, the reason why I got this far and didn't do our volumetric light is because I just kind of wanted to show you what our result looks like before we start really playing with the volumetrics and everything. And this is just kind of a simple way to create like a really easy looking galaxy. So just go ahead and turn off your sun and your bottom layer nebula. So now all we have to play with is our back region right here. So we're actually going to be playing with this region instead of our actual composition itself. So what we're going to do is on our galaxy stars layer, we're going to hit Control D. And we're going to go down, and where it says sphere, we're going to click that. We're going to hit Cloudlet. And this may look crazy or sound crazy, but we're going to bump up the size like crazy. We're going to just bump that up to like 100. Yeah, I'm going to say 200. So, yeah, 199 is fine. So, now we have this awful, awful looking donut. We'll go up to our particles per second. And what we'll do is we'll zoom into our end layer, because remember, we changed our particles. So hit our drop down box. We'll hit another drop down, go to our particle layer and our emitter. And remember, we don't want to stop it at 6. We want to do it right at the very end. And we'll hit, let's do 10 particles. So now we have this really weird looking squid, which is kind of where we want to be. But you can see the particles in the background, but what we're going to do next is going to change everything. So now what we're going to do is under Cloudlet Feather, just go ahead and bring that all the way up. So now we have a very feathered looking spiel here. And now we're going to go to opacity. I'm going to bring that almost virtually all the way down to 1. So now we've got this. We've got a little bit of clouds. And we can kind of mess with this layer. The reason why I keep it right here is because you can kind of see the clouds. You kind of can't. We can kind of, if 10's not enough for you, bring it up to maybe 15. Kind of give a little bit more in there. Maybe if you like 20. Just kind of give it a little bit more if you like. But you don't want too much, because too much is just going to basically overkill it, and you're going to lose your center here. So this is just, I think it's just too much. Let's see here. And another thing that you can do, if you really want to get into it, you can kind of detail it out to where this end layer right here, it's going to start, and you can actually make it stop a lot sooner for this layer. So you can actually turn it off, because the closer we get to the middle, we don't technically want a whole lot of cloud, a whole lot of that cloudy layer. So you can just kind of pull that back and kind of make it stop closer to the center. So now we've got our atmosphere around our center sphere right there. So now we just have these clouds around our center. That way it just gives it a little bit more of that volume. You can see something happen and it stopped. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is create the volumetrics. So where it says galaxy stars right here, I believe that's the right layer. Yeah. Let's rename this volume or cloud volume. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some light. So we'll hit Control D. We're going to call this cloud volume light. We're going to take that layer and we are going to use a plugin from Trapcode called Shine. Notice it kind of gives it that light. It gives it just a little bit of that streak, that streakiness. But I don't like the red. For some reason, I just think of galaxies as these very positive, just a very positive light. So more of like a blue. So we're going to go down to our colorize. We'll go to 3-color gradient and let's say electric. Electric's pretty good. Maybe we'll do spirit. Maybe a little bit more of that purple or heaven. Oh, heaven's going to be good. I like the heaven. We'll also kind of mess with our boost light. Just kind of give it more of that volume. And you can play around with the ray length. If you don't like the way that looks, and you can kind of pull it down, or you can kind of give it more of that aura feel. So now if you pull back our nebula and you pull back our star, we're starting to get this really cool looking galaxy. Now another thing you can do if you don't like the white stars that we've got going on here, you can also mess with the color of the stars. So I personally like the fact that they're white. You can also do you can set the color by a gradient, or you can set them by life. I would do random from gradient just to kind of give them a very random color. But if you do that, you'll want to go to color over life and push these all the way down. So click and drag them down. I would keep some white and a lighter blue. Just kind of give them a little bit of a variation. That way they still have that white look, but they also have the color. The color is really nice, and it will pull all through here. So even if you wanted to do this and maybe pull in a little bit of that darker blue, you can give it more of that look. Actually, I like that. That does actually look pretty good. Another thing you can do is under your sphere, you can create the glow sphere, give it more of an umph, but I think that looks a little bit too fake for me, so I'm just going to keep it at sphere. So now we have this very high rendering galaxy, and guess what? We're not done yet. There is a lot more to do. So you can see it kind of moves a little bit. Another thing you can do with your cloud volume light is you can kind of give it a kind of a shimmer. And the way you do that, just go to that first layer again right at your mark endpoint. and just change the amount you want it to shimmer, and pull it, around 17 to 20. And then you're going to hit phase, hit your stopwatch, and push it over, go to the end of your composition that you want it, and just kind of, you don't want it to phase too much, so we'll just push it back to, I'm going to put it at 1.5. So you want it to revolve once at 214 degrees. So when you do that, it kind of gives it a little bit more of a shimmer, a little bit more of a volume, so it looks like it glows. All right, now that we had a little bit of rendering there, you can kind of see it shimmer just a little bit, but there's not a lot to it. It's just very, very, very subtle. And if you can tell, it's going to be very render heavy because we're working with so many particles, so many different things. Like we've already tripled our particle layer just in the short time we've been doing this tutorial. We have literally tripled everything. Okay, so what are we going to do next? Well, all right, so this is the end of our part 1 of the tutorial. We're almost up to an hour. So yeah, we're going to stop it right here. So for part 2, go ahead and click the little next button. Again, you can download the tutorials or the project tutorial at avidproductions479.com. And we'll see you on part 2 of this awesome tutorial.